Senate Democrat Debbie Stabenow plans to retire at the end of her term and not seek re-election after serving in the Senate since 2000. Now the race is on to fill her seat.
We are still more than a year out from the primaries, but the ballots are already taking shape. So far, 5 Democrats have announced their candidacy, including U.S. Representative Alyssa Slotkin, Attorney Zach Burns, and former State Representative Leslie Love. And on the Republican side, so far we have Board of Education member Nikki Snyder, businessman Michael Hoover, and former Berrien County Commissioner Ezra Scott.
Joining the crowded field is Alexandria Taylor, an attorney running as a Republican. Thank you so much for joining us in studio tonight.
Thank you.
So we see everyone running here for this lone seat. What do you think makes you stand out here as a candidate?
What makes me stand out is I am the only person that can flip this seat. As you know, I previously was part of the Democratic Party, and the first time I ran for office, I ran as a Democrat. And I left the Democratic Party just because my beliefs no longer align with their platform. And so I believe that I have a unique story that will resonate with some, and particularly communities of color, in order to flip this seat next year.
What is it about the Democratic platform that doesn't align with your beliefs, and what is it about the GOP platform that does?
So that question is pretty easy for me. I don't agree with the gender reassignment for children, and I don't agree with that platform and the direction that the party is going with respect to that. And I'll say this, as an attorney, about a decade ago, they outlawed life without parole for juveniles. And the reason behind that was because their brains were not fully developed. And so I agree with that. And so with that reasoning, if their brains were not fully developed to understand the gravity of their decisions with committing a crime, that same logic should follow with changing your gender.
What are you most passionate about? What are your key issues here as you run for this position?
So I am passionate about border control, law enforcement. I believe we have a significant shortage of law enforcement, and I've seen this practicing criminal defense in the Wayne County area. I'm passionate about education, but I'm passionate about families. I want to just restore families, and so my platform and my issues that I'm going to pursue are going to be ones that benefit the family.
I'd like to ask you about a very notable lawsuit that you were part of last fall, right before the 2022 election. For our viewers who don't remember, if it were successful, it would have invalidated thousands of absentee votes in Detroit specifically. It was rejected by the judge, and it was seen by many critics as an attempt to disenfranchise voters specifically from Detroit. So, twofold question, what exactly was your role with the lawsuit? And if you are the eventual nominee and eventually elected, can Detroiters trust you to represent their interests as well as the rest of the state?
Absolutely. So my role is I was co-counsel on that lawsuit, and essentially we were calling on the City of Detroit clerk to follow the law. And so as a lawyer, when I was sworn in, I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, but also the Constitution of Michigan. And so we wanted them to follow the law. And so Detroiters can trust that they have a fighter. And so I won't back down even in the face of sanctions, grievances, whatever. Detroiters can know they have a fighter on their hands.
What do you say to people that look at your experience as a lawyer and how you can bring that to this Senate seat?
I think that there's a natural intersection of law and policy. And so having practiced law for the last 12 years, we see the effects of these policies, good and bad. And so we understand what that looks like. And I feel like we bring a unique perspective.
You mentioned some of the social, cultural issues that you're passionate about. How about economically? What else are you passionate about policy-wise?
So policy-wise, I do think that there needs to be a control on spending. And so I'm not sure about you, but if I can't balance my budget and my household, I can't go in the basement and print more money. And so we need to control spending. And so the answer is not just to continue to spend outrageously. There has to be a budget, and we have to stick within those parameters.
Obviously, there are times where things are hard to get accomplished in Washington.
Yes.
And so how do you go from just talking about it to actually making things happen?
It's the influence. So I believe as leaders and representatives, the influence and focusing on what can unite us. And so if we focus on what divides us, then we'll always be divided. But I tend to believe, and I'm an optimist, that there are more things that we agree on than we disagree.
Arguably, no one's more divided than the United States Congress. So what could you bring to Washington to actually contribute to that nonpartisanship rather than more gridlock?
You know, I think that just my background and having been on the other side, I have an open mind. And as an attorney, we are trained to argue both sides and to understand both perspectives. And so in having a respect, you know, we can disagree, but what's the best thing that we can do for the country moving forward in spite of our differences?
Well, Alexandria Taylor, Republican candidate for the U.S. Senate, thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
And you can find the rest of our previous conversations with all of the U.S. Senate candidates on CBSDetroit.com.